I'm Tracey Ryniec, Zacks Senior Stock Strategist, and also its Value Strategist. And I edit the Value Investor Portfolio here at Zacks.com, as well as the Insider Trader Portfolio. And I get a lot of questions about how to find AI infrastructure stocks. And it's not the easiest thing in the world to do so. I really do wish there was some kind of industry we could just plug in that was AI infrastructure and get all the stocks. Soon enough, there'll probably be an ETF that lists them all out there. But until that happens, you kind of have to pick and choose around various stocks. And that's not an easy thing to do if you can't run some kind of screen. So, what I have done over the years since the AI revolution really began in 2023 is to use the Zacks Rank to try to find them. You still have to do a lot of grunt work on your own, even while using the rank, but the rank did expose in 2023, also 2024, and even in 2025, those companies that are having outstanding earnings growth. And that is kind of the hallmark of the AI revolution, and certainly on the infrastructure side. So while we're having all these questions and doubts about software and what AI might do to software, and even with AI products, who's going to win on the LLMs? Who's going to be able to adopt AI into other products, maybe for medical healthcare products, that kind of thing. But the thing we do know right now that we do have some of the answers to is that someone is building out all of this AI infrastructure to allow those companies to have their AI products. And we now also know that about $600 billion is going to be spent in the AI world, a lot of it on the infrastructure, just in 2026 alone. And we had several hundred billion spent in 2025, although some of that is probably bleeding into 2026 as well. So my question is, who is getting that money? Who is going to be the beneficiary of that 600 billion? Because Alphabet, Microsoft, Amazon, they are spending this money. It is going into the economy and to these companies. I want to own, on the AI infrastructure side, the companies that are going to receive this money because it's pretty much locked in for 2026. We didn't really know until now, until February 2026, whether or not this kind of spend on the infrastructure would continue, but we're finding out it is. And it's probably going to go into 2027, but we'll keep that on the edge until later this year. But for this year, earnings are going to look really good for these infrastructure companies. One of them has already told us how good. Modine Manufacturing, I own it in Zacks Value Investor Portfolio. They are on the climate solution side. They're actually spinning off their other more old economy type of cooling businesses, and they're going to focus just on these climate solutions for the data centers, which is the AI. And they're projecting 50 to 70% growth over the next 2 years through 2028. So if that's what they're projecting, what is everybody else doing? But we come back to the same question. How do we find Modine Manufacturing? How did I know to buy that in 2023 in the Value Investor? That's when everything was just kind of starting out. I used the Zacks Rank to find all of the AI infrastructure stocks that are in the Value Investor. And I continue to look for them even in something like the Insider Trader are the insiders still buying at these infrastructure type companies? And as I said, they're kind of hidden out there. A lot of these stocks are in industries that you don't really know for sure that they're in the AI world. So where do we start? How do we find these, even using the Zacks rank? Well, like I said, it is not as easy as you think, and it does take a little bit of digging around. But I like to start with the Zacks rank because I'm going to get, if I use the number one, the strong buys, I'm going to get companies with those rising earnings estimates. And that's what got me to Modine in 2023. Those earnings estimates started to really spike. And then suddenly, this kind of slower growth old economy company that did climate for automobiles and trucks and heavy equipment was now seeing 15, 20, 30% earnings growth with no real explanation there. So if you have access to Zacks.com, or you can get the rank on many of our other products, I like to just kind of look at it on Zacks.com because it's easy. And we have the link right on the homepage for all the Zacks number one ranked stocks. Now, if you click on this and it gives me, this is the Zacks number one with the style scores, you can see that they just kind of pop up. It will tell us up here with all sectors how many on this day are number one ranked stocks. As you know, it fluctuates and it can be anywhere from 200, although I rarely have seen it that low, all the way up to about 240 stocks, although I rarely have seen it that high, but it can get that high. But usually it's right between like where it is now at 210 up to say 230 or thereabouts. Now, when I'm recording this, we're in the middle of earnings season when we're getting a lot of changes to the earnings estimates, which, as you know, will impact the Zacks rank. But that means we are going to get some of the infrastructure stocks that have already reported or have pre-reported perhaps in here. So when you go on Zacks.com and you bring up this screen, it gives you the most recently added Zacks number one ranks, which I'm recording this on February 10th, 2026. And you can see we are getting those stocks that were added today. So these are the most recent. These are companies that have just reported most likely, and we're getting the analysts' revisions. We're coming off a very busy week in earnings, especially for the S&P 500. A lot of analyst coverage on these stocks. I'm scrolling down, and all I'm seeing is 210, 210, 210, all the way down the page. So this is quite a number of stocks. Now, they're in many different industries, and you can easily just kind of get overwhelmed if you're looking at what was just recently added. But some of these, if I'm looking for AI infrastructure, I'm already going to know it's not in, some of these companies are not going to be what I'm looking for. So Ralph Lauren is on here, ticker RL. They're not an AI infrastructure company. That's on apparel. And so immediately I don't really care about that. But I have had luck finding AI infrastructure stocks in these kind of standard industries that you wouldn't really think anything interesting is kind of hanging out. And by that, I'm even meaning this very first stock, ATS Corporation, ticker ATS. I'm not familiar with this company. Market cap of 2.9 billion. So fairly small company, but they're in manufacturing / general industrial. What does that mean? I don't know, but this is where I have found AI infrastructure companies in the past that where they're just kind of hanging out in these more general categories. So let's take a look at ATS and what is going on with the earnings estimates to begin with, why we're at Zacks number one rank. and what else may be going on here. So even just scrolling down price consensus and surprise chart, this does not look like your typical AI infrastructure chart because those stocks have been running for the last several years, since 2023. And this company came to the public market in 2023. And then it looks like it's had a lot of difficulties and is just kind of hanging out now. But the earnings estimates are looking better here for 2026 and even 2027. But scrolling down again, 2025 on the sales and EPS growth rate chart, this really tells you the picture too. 2025 down 45%. So something was going on there, unlikely to be AI infrastructure because, as we know, things are going the opposite way. But a real big turnaround for this year and next year on the earnings side. Pretty good on the revenue side as well after the double-digit revenue loss, and then it kind of tires out there. But we do have all the estimates in agreement here for this year. The analysts said we were too conservative. We are raising here, and one has raised for next year. So I am liking all of this. And then we do, if you scroll down, it says it has automation solutions, automated manufacturing and assembly systems. Well, this could be AI related, right? But not in the infrastructure way, but actually what is going to go on the products as things like the robots move forward and that kind of thing. So maybe that's why we're having a little bit difficulty with the earnings the last couple of years, but now things are starting to pick up. So I wouldn't put this one in as an infrastructure stock, even just looking at these basics. But again, this is why it takes a little bit of time to scroll through these types of stocks and find some of these more hidden gems. Now, just kind of scrolling down and seeing what else was just recently added. Sometimes you can find them on like the services side, and that would be like climate solutions. In fact, let's see what category Modine is in. Sometimes you find one, okay, I forgot that this is what's going on with Modine. So as I mentioned, Modine is spinning off its older automotive and a truck business. And that's going to happen later this year in 2026. And then it's just going to be climate solutions. So right now, Zacks has it in automotive original equipment. And if you saw that, you certainly aren't thinking that any kind of AI infrastructure stock is in that category. I'm sure I did think that in 2023 when I was adding it to the value investor portfolio, but I had drilled a little deeper past just the industry name. And I had seen that they were talking about the data centers and the cooling of the data centers, even in 2023. So again, you have to be a little bit more of a detective on some of these AI infrastructure stocks. But that's why it takes a little bit of time on the Zacks rank. But let's go back and look at another way I kind of look around for the Zacks rank to try to find those hidden gems outside of just the ones that are recently added. So you can look through industry. And again, this would not have gotten me Modine, and it's not going to get me Modine if I'm just scrolling down here and looking at it, because there's Modine along with Ford Motor and some of these others, transmission company. So it really would have been hidden on these. But if we scroll down and we do try to look at some of the other areas it might be in, sometimes you can get it in, like, say, electronics, manufacturing machinery, or these manufacturing services types of companies. Like I said, we can find them sometimes in there. These ones that are electronics, because the utility side, the power side, is so important now with the AI infrastructure play. So what is going on? I don't know. Alps Electric. Let's, whoops, I don't want the industry. Let's look at what's going on with like a completely out of left field type of, now of course I've lost it, industry. Because some of these, if they are on the utility side, that's an area where we definitely probably haven't looked in the past. So it's APELY, APELY, and it's got the 5 ticker. So I'm not sure. Let's scroll down. It is foreign. So this is a Japanese company. And they're on manufacture and sale of electronic components and audio equipment. So this isn't going to be what I was hoping to find, which is on more of the utility side. But it did have the 5 tickers, which a lot of times does indicate that it could be a foreign company. So let's scroll back down and take a look at some of the others that are in there. Well, we have, we do have a utilities area too. Now I'm avoiding the semiconductors where you see like Broadcom is in there, Lam Research, because not considering those to be on the infrastructure side, even though you do need them to run the AI, obviously. But I'm looking for the cooling, for even the racks. What is this one here? Engineering R&D services. You can find AI infrastructure in this category. Legence Corp, LGN. Let's see what's going on with them. And some of these, okay, of course we have the number one. Wow, they just came to the public market last year, 5 billion market cap. We can see the revenue jumped and is expected to jump this year. Not sure why we're not getting, okay, so this year they are expected to see a loss, but then really turn it around next year. One analyst is down, but next year's where it's up. Have they reported earnings yet? We don't have anything. So you do have to watch out for that as well. Do we have what they do? Engineering, consulting, installation, maintenance service. Okay, mission critical systems and buildings, HVAC. That's what I want to see. So this is exposing what could be an AI infrastructure stock. And a lot of these, I'm going to take a closer look at the detailed earnings. That's why the stock is surging, probably because this is in the area with the keywords. And we do have, this is what's happening for 2026, the 48% increase in the revenue. This is basically indicating to me going from the loss to the big winning gain on the earnings side. And the analysts are getting more bullish here that this is some kind of AI infrastructure play. So I would have to go in and really look and see what they do when they're reporting earnings. But this is how we find these companies. And I'm sure many have never heard of Legence. I haven't. LGN, again, is the ticker, but the street has, and it's buying up. But these still remain pretty hidden of stocks. This is a recent company that was either maybe spun off or just went to the public markets last year. So not a lot of people going to be that familiar with it. And I like those kinds of names as well if I'm looking for the infrastructure. But again, this is on the engineering R&D services. And you can find quite a few stocks and companies that are on AI infrastructure, but they're also in consulting. And one of those is a company I did come across looking at the rank, Wilden Group, ticker WLDN. N. And a lot of people aren't familiar with this. So it isn't even showing up in consulting necessarily, but just business dash services. What does that mean? You would never know that they consult to like utility companies. And then look at the chart on this one, this price to consensus chart. It's up and to the right. The earnings are all doing what the AI infrastructure stocks are doing. It's a small cap, 1.7 billion, but a lot of this money, again, that Alphabet, Amazon, Microsoft, and the rest are spending, the 600 billion, are going to go to some of the smaller cap companies like this company, Wilden Group, and they're really going to see the big earnings growth. Scrolling down, earnings growth up 70% here, and then more moderate, 9.7 for next year. They haven't reported earnings yet. We'll see if we get any changes. It's not heavily covered, this company, because it is a small cap and it's on kind of that consulting area, not real glamorous. Nobody who's thinking about NVIDIA and Broadcom are thinking, oh yeah, I need to be in Wilden Group. But again, this is what the Zacks rank will uncover. Right now it's a number 3 because they haven't reported their earnings yet. But I have discovered Wilden Group while I've looking at the Zacks rank and kind of scrolling down that list. So is this an efficient way to find the hidden AI infrastructure stocks? No, it is not. It's still, even using the rank, there's still 210 stocks on there. We're getting the number ones, but we're not even getting Wilden Group. But we may get it after its earnings because a lot of these companies are reporting outstanding earnings once again, and they're seeing that growth. And that's why Modine, which is already reported, is on the number 1 rank list again, because it is really projecting out those high earnings growth for the next couple of years as this money just trickles down. And it is a stimulus to all of these on the infrastructure side, not the product side, not whether or not, we're going to be able to use AI to create that great medical device, that kind of thing. It will impact there eventually. But for right now, the money and the earnings growth and the revenue growth are really in these AI infrastructure. We're building out the data centers, not just in the US, but it's a global build out. Some of these are global stocks, some of them are US only, but this story is going to play out in 2026. And so as an investor, I really want to be in this group. I've been buying it for the value investor for the last 2 years. A lot of these stocks have run quite a bit, even though the earnings are up, and they're a little pricey for me to get in some of these now as a value investor. I'm hoping some of the insiders buy and I can get them in as an insider. A lot of times we'll have a good PEG ratio, though, that low PEG ratio, which is showing me value and growth. Right now with Wilden, we're not getting that, but forward PE on Wilden is, about 26 times. That's not real cheap. Obviously, 2023 is when you wanted to get in this trade, but I did buy some companies in the AI space last year in 2025 because the beats, like we're seeing here with Wilden, look at the size of these beats, 49% last quarter. This is a huge one here, 108%. These are, again, smaller cap companies, not as heavily covered. The analysts are having a hard time keeping up with what's happening with the earnings. And that's what we want as investors. We want to have it so good that these analysts cannot actually keep up. And that's what we're seeing. So use that Zacks rank list to try to uncover some of these. And then I keep a list of all of these types of companies I have found, some that I already own, but I have a watch list of like a Wilden Group. It is a little bit off of its recent highs here. If it could only, maybe go back down to this level down here below 100 that it hit in 25, it might get cheap enough for me to consider it again for my value portfolio. That's why I keep the watch list. Also, if the earnings growth really is just that tremendous and I'm able to get that peg down, even under 1 on the peg, then, I consider that cheap because I am getting that growth component and I will like to jump in. So just looking back again at Modine, we've got the big spike in the chart here on the earnings and the spin-off of its older, slower business. Still a good business on the automotive and heavy equipment side, but it's not going to get you 50 to 70% growth rates like the climate solutions. So that's why it's spinning that off. Modine shareholders will still own a portion of that new business, by the way, but will really just have this pure play data center play. PE now is at 46. That is very high. But look at this PEG ratio, 1.36. It's not under 1, even with the spike in the earnings. But this is pretty cheap. And that's why I still like it, even as a value. It is a little stretched here on this latest move. So we'll see. It's not heavily followed. It's a mid cap, 11 billion now on the market cap. But as it cools down a bit here, it will pull back and quiet down a bit. And then maybe a better buying opportunity. But if you're on the growth side, the growth is here. These are the kinds of charts we want to see for that AI infrastructure. So a lot of the AI infrastructure that I follow have not reported earnings yet. We're going to start to get a bunch of those earnings reports coming in. I'm expecting some of the charts to look like Modine as people realize that, hey, this isn't going away, even though we already know, because we've already heard from the hyperscalers that it's going to be 600 billion in spend this year. And for some of these companies, especially on the construction side, we haven't talked about them. Someone is building these data centers. Their backlogs are growing, but even then, we've got 600 billion spend. Some of the data centers are costing $11 billion just to build. Amazon has a couple of those. So does Meta. And so the construction backlog is growing with some of these, but these construction firms, small caps, 2, 3, 5 billion market caps, and they already have these big backlogs. And so I'm liking those plays too. We already know what's going to happen with the earnings. And some of those construction plays have said that they could, and I'm quoting here, charge anything, unquote, and get whatever they want, because that's how desperate it is for these hyperscalers to get these data centers built. So I'm loving this trade here in 2026. Forget the software trade and the angst going on over there. Go where the money is going. It's going in AI infrastructure. Use the Zacks Rank to try to find these companies. Look in these categories that are seemingly kind of boring: construction, engineering, services, the business services side, obviously any kind of cooling, manufacturing. Those all can have some of these hidden gems. But it's in areas maybe you've never looked at in the past, and certainly not in technology, usually. Utilities, it could be in a basic utility where you see these kinds of things happening. Companies making products for the utility companies because somehow they've got to attach that turbine, or somebody's making those turbines that are keeping the AI going, the data center running. So again, a lot of different categories, and I just really like this area. I'm trying to find more stocks in it for the value investor as we move along here in 2026. But it's racing away a little bit. I'm glad with the stocks that we own, but I think all investors should be in AI infrastructure stocks here in 2026. So use all your tools that you have at your hands, and you might want to run an AI search, maybe in that Chat GPT Pro, if you've got access to that, or Zacks AI, to try to find some of the key words and then use the rank to narrow it down even further that way. But I kind of like digging around because that's where you find those hidden gems. So I'll be back again in a couple of weeks with some more stock ideas and how to use Zacks tools to find these top stocks. We do have our hidden product, which is the rank, kind of overlooked by a lot of people, but really shouldn't be when you have a revolution going on. This is when those earnings estimates explode higher and where the rank can really uncover these hidden gems. So I'll see you again next time with some more stock ideas.